Hello everyone, welcome back for another stream. Oh, two of me. It's all right, there's only one of me now. Hello, good morning. It is Thursday. That took me a moment. The 7th of January, 2021. It is 1 p.m. just about. And I am in the middle of quite a bad flare. I didn't stream yesterday, and I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to stream today, but there's a lot of stuff happening and a lot of stuff I want to talk about, and I try on days where it's really bad to have something that I say, if I do this thing, I've won today. I've done what I need to do today, so I'm here. I've done the thing. The first thing I want to say is that I am thinking a lot of all of not just my friends in the US, but the people in the US in general, especially disabled people and people of colour who are looking at the atrocities committed yesterday and thinking about all of the many, many times that people in wheelchairs have been pulled out of their wheelchairs and arrested just for setting foot in the wrong place, where black people have been shot in their beds at home. And if you think any of that's okay, you can fuck right off, just to be absolutely clear. I just wanted to put that first. It's not something I'm going to talk about more today, but it felt very important to put that straight up front, because we should do. And yeah, I wanted to put that there. So, with that said, let's talk about crippling pain. Yeah, so I posted a bit on Twitter, but basically what happened is after I streamed on Tuesday, it wasn't my pain on Tuesday, it was I was aching a lot and my legs were very weak. I was having trouble walking and moving around. And what happened was, as I was moving, so stairs are particularly bad for me. And as I was going up and down the stairs, I started having thoughts, intrusive thoughts, of why don't you just walk up the stairs properly? What are you doing? You're making all of this up, that sort of thing, but a lot more aggressive. And it got worse and worse. I was very lucky that once I was able to get myself to some form of distraction did work. I played Dragon Age for a while. If you're new here, Dragon Age is my favourite computer game of all time. Inquisition specifically is my favourite computer game, but the Dragon Age series is also my favourite video game series. And I've started a replay of Dragon Age. I know I mentioned that where I started this replay I was suddenly sleeping better. Is this replay. So I played Dragon Age for a few hours. Then there was the return of one of the shows I watch on Table Story, and I'm going to shout out Table Story because they're amazing. I watched two of their shows. I watched Witchcraft and Wizardry, which is Harry Potter with not a penny going to She Who Must Not Be Named. And it's wonderful and glorious. And then I also watch Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is also amazing, and they're on Tuesdays and Friday evenings. So I got to watch that on Tuesday, and that was fantastic, and it completely took me out of what was happening in my head and what was happening in my body, and it meant that I was able to sleep. I won't say well, but much, much better than I would have expected to be able to sleep after having such really intense intrusive thoughts. And yeah, so then I got up on Wednesday And the aches hadn't gone away, and I was in a bit more pain. I don't remember where exactly the pain was. I think it was like general all over my body. And I'd already decided I wasn't going to stream. I decided that was a bit too much. But I was trying to work out, you know, what can I do? What should I do? What is that thing where I say if I do this, I've succeeded at everything? And I had a webinar at 11 a.m. to go to, and it was a COVID update from the university. And if you follow me on Twitter, you will have seen that this didn't go well. Basically, what's happened is our government, through their choices regarding the COVID restrictions, have completely screwed over both university staff and students. No one knows what is going on. The staff who are desperately trying to support us are frantically trying to establish what's going on. They want to help with things. But you've got students who are facing eviction, deportation. They're stuck hundreds of miles from support. They don't know what support they can now get access to. There are students who have COVID. There are students who are quarantining because people in their halls have tested positive, and it's really, really horrible. And all of those students are understandably very angry, and I can't blame them for being very angry. Of course, they're angry, and there was a lot of people shouting at the staff who were trying to give this presentation. And the staff didn't answer their questions because they didn't have the answers to their questions, and it just made it worse. And I felt so incredibly uncomfortable being there. I want to be clear that I don't think it's right to yell at people. I don't consider that sort of the nature of the abuse that staff were getting to be acceptable at all. But I do also think it's important to acknowledge that the things that people are shouting about are worth shouting about. It just doesn't justify that level of abuse. Everyone has been let down and everyone is struggling, and it's really awful. It's really bad. And I think I don't know whether I had sort of gotten lulled into a sense of security or denial. I think it was more denial. I think I've always known how bad it is. I think I just haven't been acknowledging it. I don't know if I've yet processed the grief about my master's degree going normally or the start of my PhD going normally. There has been so much grief to process in the past year, with Granddad dying and with the massive change in my physical health and suddenly not being able to do very simple things. That's too much to grieve for at once, let alone then the state of the rest of the world. So it hit me really hard yesterday, and I think that's part of why I'm flaring so badly now. It wasn't helped by the fact that I also had to go pick up prescriptions, and I have to walk there and back, and it's further than I can walk. And I have to make myself do it. I'd managed to, fortunately, to wait until, so I'm on about, how many prescriptions do I have? 6, something like that, because we've been trying to find a medication that will actually work and help, and that's been very hard to do. I'm not, by the way, going to go into exactly what medications I'm on or trying. I'll give generalized things, so I'll say, you know, I'm on painkillers. I know I've done differently in the past, and this is something I want to change because I want to be clear that I'm not, you know, giving medical advice. And I think if you talk too much about like specific medications, you start inciting that. And that's something that I'm copying from Hello is Colo. So thanks, Colo, for I think it's a really good stance to take. I will say general things. So I will, for example, tell you that I'm on a kind of antidepressant, and I'm on a kind of medication that is designed to effectively change how my body interprets pain. And it is also kind of considered an antidepressant. And I'm on painkillers, and I'm now on muscle relaxants. The muscle relaxants are for emergencies only, for when I'm really, really struggling with agony rather than just pain. And they're very limited because they're very addictive. So yeah, I had to go collect them. There was a bit of a problem with one. It hadn't quite made it to the pharmacy. It was done, and I was able to go to the doctors and get it and pick it up. But obviously then I had to walk a lot more. And the thing with my limits with walking, so I took my walking stick. I was good. There was no way I was going without my walking stick. And I went slowly and steadily, and I went the route that I know is, so I live in a very hilly area, and slopes are really bad for me. So where stairs are bad, slopes are worse. I'd much rather do a set of stairs than go down a slope. And there's a few routes I can take to the pharmacy and to the doctors, and I took one that's a gentler slope. So I did that, and I couldn't, by the time I was back in the pharmacy waiting for the second prescription, I could barely stand up. They have chairs. I wasn't always able to sit in the chairs because if you're only allowed 2 people in our pharmacy at the moment, sometimes 3. And if those people are standing between the chairs, I can't go sit in a chair because they're too close to it. And yeah, I could just ask them to move, but I don't always have the capacity to do that, especially when I'm very anxious. And I've mentioned that I go outside so infrequently now that whenever I do, it's really hard on my anxiety. I didn't actually have a full-on panic attack, but I would describe what happened as a prolonged anxiety attack. I got more intrusive thoughts on the way home, some of which were suicidal ideation. And I want to be clear that when I talk about that, I don't consider myself to be at risk of suicide. I do believe I have the capacity to ask for help before it reaches that point. And that I have people around me who would notice if I was reaching that point. But I do experience intrusive thoughts of suicide without the intent behind them, I think is the best way I can put it. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because that as a symptom can be just as horrible and just as intense. And I don't think that gets acknowledged very much. So that's an important thing to say. I'm about to drink from a water bottle, but I can't lift it up, so this is going to look real weird. There you go. Oh, Twitch has noticed that I'm streaming. Thanks, Twitch. Am I streaming? Oh, wow. Only took you 15 minutes. However, I did do it. I did go to the pharmacy. I got all my prescriptions. I got home. I collapsed. And then spent the entire rest of the day in bed. Hi, Dan. How are you doing? Yeah, I don't actually remember what I did for any of yesterday evening. It passed in a blur. I managed to distract myself, basically. I played more Dragon Age. I think I did a little bit of writing before my hands got really bad. But then when I woke up this morning, so I basically can't use my right hand at all. I'm the wrong way around because cameras are weird. I can just about use my left hand, but it's painful. I also can't walk very well. This is a really unfortunate combination because I'm having trouble using my walking stick because I can't use my hands very well. So that's, I shouldn't have done that. That was really painful. The problem with my pain being variable is that there are some things that I know will always cause me pain, but using my hands doesn't always cause me pain. It just does when my hand pain is flaring. So I get into the habit of like using my hands in certain ways and gesticulating and whatever. And then I get to a point like this and I just naturally go and do things. And it's awful. So yeah, the pain is partly in my wrist, but it's also in my fingers. It feels like slightly tingly, like neuropathic pain, which is interesting because basically fibro pain isn't generally neuropathic. So there's 3 different kinds of pain. And it's neuropathic, nociceptic, and cryoseptic. I think that one's wrong. I can't remember them in detail. I need to turn the music down. Using a computer mouse, particularly hard right now, so I'm sorry, this is going to be a bit jumpy. There we go, I've got it. I've gotten this all set up by moving very slowly and carefully, and also just accepting that it's a bit painful. So obviously, what this has done is put a massive fucking spanner in all of, when we sat here on Tuesday, I made all of those plans where I was like, what I need to do is I need to make specific plans about what I'm going to do and when, and that way it'll be easier to achieve them, and I'll make sure I don't do too much work and it'll be good and steady work, and then I will get things done in time. I can't type today, so that's not happening. I did actually get some more notes typed up yesterday. The section that was about STDs in 18th century libertines wasn't entirely appropriate for streaming my notes on Twitch. I did get most of that typed up. I think I've got like 5 pages left. I did a lot of this during the horrible web chat. Page 39, so I've got about 8 pages left. So then effectively with all this plan I made, I'm completely behind. So what this has told me is the plans are great, but I can't make them for specific days. I think what I need to do is, I think rather than saying I will do this reading on this day and this writing on this day and this whatever on this day, what I need to do is say, this is the next reading thing I will do. This is the next note taking, note copying admin thing I will do. This is the next writing up thing I will do. Because I absolutely do need to make those goals. That will really help. But if I tether them to a day and then I flare like I have now, all that will happen is I will reach this day, I will look at Thursday the 7th and go, yoga, can't do that. Stream, well, I've done it, but I was meant to be copying the notes up for these 2 weeks, I can't do that. Reading, no point doing it, I can't take notes. Watering my plants, I might manage that one later. And then the list of stuff I was going to read, and it means that I come and look at this list and I'm immediately just really upset that I can't do things. And that's the last thing I need to be right now. And also when I'm flaring, my goals are very different because they need to be very different. Other than streaming, which I partially wanted to do because I knew I wanted to sit here and talk through it so that I can work out what I need to do today. Honestly, the thing I most want to be able to do today is have a bath, because that will help my body, and it will also mean that I'm actually clean. I don't really care about anything else. because if I manage that, then that's pretty impressive. Given that I might need help getting in and out of the bath, that's a really hard thing to think about, and it means that I just go, well, I'm not even going to try, because it's particularly hard to have spent so many years working really hard to get myself to the point where I can do things like that in spite of my mental illness, only to find that I'm physically incapable of them. It sucks. Really sucks. I don't really have anything to add to that. And that's it is one of the things I haven't fully processed yet. Yeah, so I think what I need to do, and I'm not going to do this today because it would involve writing things up or typing things up, neither of which are happening. I think what I want to, because I was talking also about making a system for listing things I want to read that isn't just my stack of books over there and my list of links, my bookmarks. I've got new books, by the way, I'll show you them in a second. I've got a bunch that are on back order and harder to source, so I'm slowly getting books through. It's fantastic. Like a surprise from past me, or past my in-laws who bought me them. Yeah, I think basically I need to have master lists that I can pull from, and then I almost need to have like a place where I move things to say this is the next one. And I'm actually tempted to do that in some kind of board, like a whiteboard or a board that I put. I've got a load of boards that I painted that I can put up on the wall, like my self-compassion board, which I've shown on stream before. I would show you it now, but I would not be able to take it down and put it back up. So I might make another one of like that, and then have it where I can put post-it notes of things and then move them over. Although actually, I remember when I tried that before, the post-it notes just fell off all the time. I'm gonna buy a whiteboard. I think that's probably much better. Or I could get like a pegboard or something. That pinboard might be the way to do it, because then it'll look nicer. So yeah, do something like that where I can then have everything listed and then move it over. It'll be there and nice and clear as a reminder. And then I can continue to bullet journal, and I do think it's still useful to list best case scenario stuff. It's more, but it would be more that like I would list stream, read, notes. So try and do those things, and then when I need to know what they are, I go to the board, whatever it may be. And I think that's probably a good way to do it, because also then I can then cluster things together. So if I find like a couple of articles that are shorter and on a similar theme, so I think it might be good to read them at the same time, I can put them together, or that sort of thing. I think that's my plan. So maybe I'll get the I might treat myself to a stationery order. I love stationery. Or, you know, and get like a board and pins and the stuff that I will need to do that, and then we can put that together on stream. I think that sounds like a nice idea. Because that's the sort of thing I want to show as well, is like there's a lot of studying is organizing. I really like organizing. So I might try and do that. So that's one side of it, is in terms of what I do when. The other side of it is I'm moving stuff on my desk, but it's taking me a moment. I'm going to also have some more water. Which looks so fucking weird. I want to get my calendar up so I can show you. Or not show you, because I don't want to dox myself, but I can tell you. So what I have right now is I have a day routine blocked out in my calendar. I did this in December and it was working really, really well for me at that point. It's not working now, because I sat there all morning, just like sitting there in bed being like, this is my morning routine time. I don't have the ability to do most of the things on that list. I guess I'll just stay here. And basically, it's when I'm flaring, which currently is probably 60% of the time, because I'd barely stopped the last flare before this week. There's no point trying to stick to a schedule, because the schedule is that I do what I can when I can. The problem is the schedule did help me at other points, so it's really hard. I wonder if I get rid of these specific numbers, like I get rid of this schedule and I just go for, I'm trying to find a way to keep a schedule. God, I'm so glad I get to talk to my mentor again in a couple of weeks. She'll know what to do and I don't know what to do. All right, I'm trying to think of what she would be telling me at this point. She would probably be telling me that this is my tendency to hyper-organize myself. And that I don't need to stick, like, the schedule is meant to be a system put in place to help me do things. Or not do things if I need to. Because the whole point of blocking out my entire morning so that I don't have to do anything in those hours where I'm less functional, and keeping my evening clear so I don't have to do things in the evening when I'm also less functional. The whole point of that is to do what I can when I can. And that doesn't need to be an hour by hour thing. The only thing I really want to do, like, I obviously certain things will happen at set times. I can't, I can't be like, I feel like this doctor's appointment being 2 hours from now. Hi Felix, thank you for following. That's not gonna work. But like keeping the principle of doing things when it's possible to do them makes sense. And then setting scheduled times for things only if I need to. No, actually I'm not. I was gonna say, okay, I'm gonna delete all of this, but I'm not gonna do that now because that would be a lot of clicking with my mouse and I'd rather not. Yeah, because otherwise all that happens is I look at this and go, oh, I'm not using this time properly. And I just use it as a way to... My brain weasels basically use it, not me. My brain weasels use it as a way to be awful to me. And that's not what it's there for. And I don't want to give them that power. So yeah, I think I need to throw that out. I might revisit that. One of the other things that my mentor has taught me, and that I have learned, is that it's important to constantly revisit the systems you have, especially right now where I'm relearning the capacity of my body-mind. It's really important to make sure that I'm checking in with that regularly and saying, okay, do I need to change how I'm doing this again? And it might be that I don't need to. It might be that I look at it and go, oh, hey, actually, this is working fine. But I think it's important to keep checking that because my needs change as time goes on. I wish I could lift this water bottle up so that didn't look so weird. Look, I can just about manage that with my left hand. I promise there's a water bottle here. But yeah, that's basically where I am. Is I'm in one of those places where I've got to revisit everything. Sorry, my legs are going. I'm not going to be able to sit in this chair for much longer. But I'm here. I'm here and I did it. And that's the bar I wanted. And I think my goal is for today just to get through it and to try and have a bath at some point when I feel like I'm more able to. It sucks. This really sucks. I want to be able to fucking walk again normally without worrying about the fact that I can't walk normally and maybe I'm making it up. I'm not making it up. A lot of doctors with a lot of training and experience have explained that I'm not. A lot of people have explained that I'm not, and I still have that pervasive thought. Doubt is not a symptom that gets listed in the categorization systems for mental illness. It is the worst thing. Oh my goodness. Felix, thank you for that host. Hello, welcome in everyone. I'm Rebecca, or Melodious Tear. I'm an academic streamer here on Twitch. I am about to start a PhD in the medical humanities, where I will be looking at narratives of mental illness and how they're constructed and how they're put across, and specifically looking at non-standard ways of doing that. So things like graphic novels, artist books, poetry, fan fiction, stuff that's not your standard published work. Yeah, I'm just here doing a catch-up today, talking about what's going on and how shit everything is. So you've come in at a great time. What I was about to do, if I'm going to be able to hold these up, I think I probably can with my left hand. I also have a chronic pain condition which currently is affecting my hands quite badly, also the rest of my body, but especially my hands. I can't use this hand right now, so that's why. So when I was so excited to get this book, I did not realise how big it was going to be. This is... Oh no green screen, don't do it. So I got this book. I was really excited. Look at this. Look at how thick it is. I'm so excited. I wrote a paper on shame and depression last year, and it was about Ali Brosh's blog, Hyperbole and a Half. And I'm so excited to have this book and to read through it. I then also have, and this book is much lighter, so I can hold this one up. This is Giving Up the Ghost by Hilary Mantel, which is an illness memoir, but specifically about misdiagnosed and undiagnosed illness, which is something that I'm interested in as well. It has a lot of crossover with mental illness. I'm not sure how much with my PhD I'm going to get into the crossover between mental illness and other forms of illness and misdiagnosed or undiagnosable illness, unexplainable illness. I think it's important to acknowledge that in some way, but the problem I have at this point is I don't really have a concept of how much room I have to go over things. My experience thus far of writing papers is either 3,000, 5,000 or 10,000 word papers, which is very different to a PhD. It's significantly shorter. So I have a concept of how much I can fit in those, but I don't really have a concept of how much I can fit in a PhD. So I've got all of these ideas, but no real concept of whether I'll manage to get them in. I don't even know how many kinds of non-normative narrative I'm going to fit in. And actually what I'll do, if I, just whilst I'm talking, I'll just put that up as well. Hi Neil. So yeah, when I say non-normative narrative form, I basically mean anything that isn't what you'd think of as a normal book. So for example, I went to a conference late last year, and there was someone talking about YouTube vlogging as a form of narrative, and a form of narrative that's like very common in illness narratives. There's a lot of so they were looking specifically at some teenage cancer vloggers, and the way they were using YouTube to effectively construct their own narrative that was different to the rehabilitation style, like journey to getting better narratives. And so that was really interesting. I don't think I'm going to get to that, nor do I necessarily want to go down. I think that's quite a big rabbit hole that I would fall down, because I think the moment I go there, I've got to start thinking about social media as a form of narrative, and that's something I've already thought of and gone, well, that would be interesting, and it's really relevant because I'm specifically looking at stuff from within the past 10 or 20 years, more like the last 10 years. And the reason I'm looking at that is I think that one of my hypotheses is that non-normative narrative has flourished in the internet era, and the more people have had access to the internet, the more that they've been able to produce things like this. And things have gotten, like, it's cheaper to have a printer at home, so things like zines and stuff like that are getting easier and easier to produce and that sort of thing. You don't have to hand make all of them individually in the same way anymore. You can get them printed more accessibly. And one of the reasons I'm interested in non-normative narrative form, I should not have made that such a tongue twister. I need to pick a different term. One of the reasons that I find that so interesting is that it's much more accessible, both to, so I'm reading, it's in the other room because I'm reading it. I'm reading a memoir about depression right now, which I can't remember the name of. Is it called, that's going to really annoy me. No, I can't remember what it's called. It's written in small fragments. It's prose, mostly. I think there's some poetry in it, but it's mostly like a normal memoir, except that it's broken into small fragments. And the reason that the author has done that is that it's hard when you are severely depressed to read much at a time. So that's really interesting, and I suspect I'm going to end up writing about that book. What specific areas are you looking at other than internet? So I'm not really looking at the internet specifically, more than the internet is one of the things that has catalyzed and enabled the forms of narrative I'm looking at. But one of the forms I'm looking at is graphic novels, and comics and that sort of thing. And I have one of the, see if I can reach and get this. temporarily exposing my green screen there. So this is really hard to hold over my microphone. This is You're Strong, Smart and You Got This, which is by Kate Allen. And you've almost certainly seen some of her stuff on Twitter. She has, sorry about that noise, cute animal drawings with positive affirmations on. They're adorable and wonderful. That sort of thing, it's much easier to create and spread and have people see it because of social media, because of Tumblr, because of like big sharing platforms. And I think that sort of thing has spread a lot more in the past 10 years because of the accessibility of it. Because of that accessibility, now obviously images, it's also worth noting, not accessible to everyone, obviously. I don't recall whether she posts her images with alt descriptions. I think often people add alt descriptions to them when sharing them. But if you are, for example, a person living below the poverty line, this might be more accessible to you than this is more accessible to you than traditional publishing. You're much more able to post something on Twitter than you are to get a book deal. And there's also there's the rise of self-publishing as well. So I'm interested in looking like at self-publishing as a halfway house, somewhere between traditional publishing. I wrote this illness memoir about my recovery, which is the standard illness memoir format, and self-publishing where it might be, it won't be edited. And the thing is, the moment anyone else gets involved in, this is not to say editing is bad. I don't think editing is bad. Editing is really useful. But the moment you involve an editor, all of the other people involved in publishing, you are involving a lot of people who are almost all white and middle class or higher. Because the publishing industry is horrendously lacking in any kind of diversity. And the moment that happens, you're going to have not the silencing of minority voices necessarily, like the literal, not the minority people having their words changed, but first of all, they probably haven't gotten the book deal in the first place. And if they have, then other people are involved in their writing, and they're people who don't have an understanding of that embodied experience. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff I'm looking at and why I'm interested in it. And that was a really what is going on? I just got another host from Felix. I don't know why I've been hosted twice, but that's a very large number. I don't look at viewer numbers. So hosts are weird because they tell me, I should probably turn off it telling me the number. Isn't there some sort of a creative blockage or a not so expressive, tangible representation observed amongst the people suffering with any mental illnesses? Or are you looking at the other aspects that create a positive impact? So one of the things I'm looking at specifically, it is absolutely true that people who are experiencing mental illness can have trouble creating. This notion of the depressed poet being the ideal poet is bullshit. Experiencing mental illness can massively cripple your ability to work creatively. Doesn't for everyone necessarily, but for the most part, that stereotype is a stereotype. However, the really interesting thing is, as a result, a lot of mental illness narratives are often written not at the time. of the illness's peak, but when it's gone into some kind of remission. So you will get, so I've got Elizabeth Wurzel's Prozac Nation in front of me, for example, which she writes at the point where she's looking retrospectively at the most intense period of her depression. I've got a bunch of other, I've got Wintering by Catherine May, which is amazing, by the way, which again is written retrospectively. Now, neither of these books, neither of them claim to be completely asymptomatic or free of their mental illness. They're saying it's still affecting me, but they're not in the crisis point, and they've reached a point where they have been able, for the most part, because they're generally like more traditional narratives, to construct their experience into that form. Now, the reason I'm interested in non-normative narrative is it removes the necessity to shape your embodied experience into a neat package. Now, this is something we do naturally. In order to make sense of things, we try and shape them into a story that makes sense. And that's not a bad, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That is a good thing, and it is an authentic thing to do. But one of the reasons I'm looking at authenticity is that I also think you can query authenticity in terms of where is the stuff that was produced in those crisis moments, in those places where you are trying to express what Arthur Frank calls a chaos narrative. He thinks chaos narratives can't be narrated, can't be written, can't be expressed. I don't think that's true. I think it's very possible for things to be produced creatively at those times of extreme illness that show us something, and show us something authentic and important about that experience. And I think one non-normative narrative makes that more accessible, because there is no expectation that you're going to produce an entire novel. If you write a haiku and that's all you can manage, that's an authentic and important and valid expression of how you're experiencing your illness at that time. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. And that's why I think it's really interesting. And I'm still, I think it's going to be really important to define what I mean by authenticity. Because when I came to this originally, actually, I was looking at questioning, how can a mental illness narrative related to anxiety ever be authentic? Because one of the characteristics of anxiety-defined disorders is looking at the world and seeing it in a way that it isn't. So, for example, if I leave the house, I consider every single person around me a threat. That's not actually the case. A lot of them are just walking past me. But my brain, because of my anxiety, and because my anxiety is mostly social anxiety, so I will go out there and I will see people and I will go, oh God. And I will have thoughts about people attacking me. I will have all sorts of intrusive thoughts. Now, that reality that my anxiety is constructing isn't real in the sense of the likelihood of it happening. Not that there's no likelihood that I would be attacked, because obviously there is. But in that moment, it is a fictive reality that is being constructed by my mental illness. But the construction of it to me and to my embodied experience is very real. And it's, just because something is in your head doesn't mean it isn't real. And I'm really interested in how we put that across. And that's why I'm interested in things written in those moments of chaos. Because I want to know if it's possible to express that complexity of reality. I want to know if it's possible to express what it really feels like to exist with that, because I've spent a very long time trying to be able to, and I don't know if I've gotten there. And I want to see how other people do it. I want to learn how they do it. I want to see if there are ways we can do it better, if there are things we can support that will make it more possible. Yeah, that's I've just talked for like 30 minutes solid and it's just whizzed by. So is this embodied formulation of a neat package narrative going to make it easier for the people to comprehend? Is that a primary objective, making it more comprehensive through a tangible representation? You generalize it though, and everyone's reality could be subjective in some sense. So that's sort of what I'm saying, is that everyone's reality is subjective in some sense. Because with that example, there is something subjective about my fear, because it's my fear, not the fear of the person I'm walking past. And one of Frank's arguments, so this is in The Wounded Storyteller, which I've got over there, one of the reasons he argues for that neat package narrative is to make it easier for people to comprehend, and building into that natural way, that because we're all natural storytellers, we use stories to make sense of the world. And he basically argues that the restitution narrative, which is basically narratives of recovery, is the way by which you make sense of your illness and you understand the journey of your illness and the process of it, and you understand that. But for many people who are chronically ill, or who haven't reached that point in the story yet, their embodied experience doesn't package up neatly, but they still need to express it. Or, for example, they can't write for that long at a time, but they still need to write something. And it's so the objective of that is really to find how we represent the things that people claim we can't. How do we truly express what it feels like, what it is like to have that moment? It's very temporal. I've started doing, or getting, not doing yet, but I've started getting a load of reading related to the passage of time in chronic illness, because a lot of it is looking at the point in illness that is non-temporal almost, where time has become irrelevant, and at points where you're stuck, because the moment you that idea of a narrative journey, of a neatly packaged narrative journey towards recovery, is very dependent upon the passage of time. But if you're at a point where either you have a chronic illness and things won't get better permanently, obviously there's illnesses that relapse and remit, that are still chronic. So I've lost my train of thought there, sorry. If you're in one of those, your relationship to time is very different. And you might not be able to use time as the foundation of your narrative structure. Most books are written chronologically. We don't really think about that. We just accept it as an innate thing about storytelling. There's stories that play with that, My favourite musical is called The Last 5 Years, and it's a 2-person musical, and it's about their relationship. And one of them, they alternate singing songs, and one of them starts at the end of the relationship and goes backwards. One of them starts at the beginning of the relationship and goes forwards. So you get the first song about, from one point of view about it having ended, and then you get the other person singing about the start of the relationship, and you can see them. It's so cleverly written. And yeah, there's absolutely things that play with time like that, and there's flashbacks and all sorts, like narrative techniques involving time. But for the most part, those are secondary to a linear chronological narrative. And linear chronological narrative is not always something that represents the embodied experience of illness. So that's something I want to... I've so many things I want to look at. And yeah, that time is one of those subjective things as well, and the experience of time, because obviously at that point in illness, time is passing, but it doesn't necessarily feel like time is passing in the normal way, the same way. So yeah, I think that's a very interesting side of it as well. What time are we at? Oh gosh, it's almost 2 o'clock already. So this has been amazing. I just came here to do like a really quick update about how things were going. And then I've ended up talking for an hour straight. So do you know about Stanislav Grof or holotropic breathwork? So it's a breathing technique to... Yes. Yes, I do. This is related to... I don't know about this breathing technique specifically, but that any kind of breathing technique works with something called heart rate variability, which is to do with the rhythm of your heartbeat, basically, and how regular it is. And that has a really strong connection to the emotional brain. And you can use, when you use breathing techniques to calm anxiety, for example, the reason it works is that you bring your HRV into a steadier rhythm. And that then in turn communicates to your emotional brain that it's time to calm down. It's like a feedback loop, effectively, is what you cause. Yeah, that's something I've read about quite a lot. It was in The Body Keeps the Score, which we read on stream. Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting in people who have specifically experienced trauma, even after they are considered to have quote unquote recovered, they will still have abnormal heart rate variability, which is really interesting. It's to do, there's different like waves in it as well that can be identified and stuff, and brain waves that it relates to. But yeah, so it's in The Body Keeps the Score and Healing Without Freud or Prozac. Both have stuff about HRV, and if you're interested in anyone's interested in reading more, The Body Keeps the Score does contain very explicit but not gratuitous discussion of traumatic events, so do be careful reading it if you have any triggers, especially related to sexual or childhood assault. But yeah, no, I think it's super interesting, and I've definitely found breathing techniques to work for me. It's the reason yoga's really good. One of the reasons that yoga is really good for mental illness. But yeah, I will head off now. I need to get myself out of this chair because I'm really struggling to sit in it now. But thank you all very much for being here. And will try. It is really interesting, yeah. I will try and be back tomorrow. We'll see how we go. As always, I will keep notices. I went to say notifications and then realized that was the wrong word and ended up saying notices really weirdly. I will put stuff on Twitter if that changes. But otherwise, I will hopefully see you all tomorrow. Thank you for being here today. It's going to take me a moment to get us onto the right screen. But yeah, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for chatting. It's been lovely to talk about what's going on. And take care of yourselves, and I will see you all tomorrow.